I would be play cool, play me. Anke was the base camp. Khantoum, Bangsang, Battle of Idrang, Battle of Chupong, LZ Betty, LZ Mary, LZ English, Cambodia, North Vietnam, Laos, Thailand as a scout.
Joey, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted
Do you recall the date?
March 13th, 1963,
Where were you living at the time?
Ansonia, Connecticut.
1963, that was early in the war.
I wasn't in the war in 63. I was in the war in 65.
Why did you enlist in 1963?
I enlisted out of high school, being the fact that in that time and era, I wasn't college material, and the guys who weren't college material would join the service, whatever branch they preferred. That was basically the thing to do during that era of time.
And why did you choose the Army?
I chose the Army. I wanted to be a paratrooper, like my uncle.
Your uncle was a paratrooper?
Second World War. Has two combat jumps, Normandie and Battle of the Bulge.
Where did you go for your basic training?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Do you recall how long that was?
8 weeks basic training. Then I had 8 weeks of advanced infantry training, still at Fort Dix. Airborne School, Fort Benning, Georgia. Repellent School, Fort Benning, Georgia.
Before you go any further, let's go back to your basic training
Yes.
at Fort Dix. What was it like the first 8 weeks and then your advanced training? What was basic training like when you first went in?
Regular basic or advanced infantry basic?
Regular basic.
Scared, disorientated, nobody to turn and say, you know, can you help me? Can you be a crutch for me? You know, it's scary when you don't, no mommy, no daddy, no brothers, no sisters, you know. I look back, it was a lot of fun when I look back, but being 18 years old, it wasn't too cool. It wasn't too much fun.
What kinds of things did they train you?
I was trained, considered a light infantry, light infantry. That's 111. Machine gun, rifle, pistol, grenades, grenade launcher, flamethrower. My steady job became an M60 man, machine gunner. And
did they teach you that in basic training or not until advanced?
they taught me that in both basic and advanced infantry training.
Do you recall any of your instructors from basic training?
My instructors from basic training? You want the name?
If you remember them.
I remember Lieutenant Jacobs because he was Jewish.
And what was he like?
He was a nice guy. He was a good guy. He was the platoon. He was the platoon leader. And I can't remember some of the other. Oh, my platoon leader. My platoon sergeant was Sergeant Livesay, S-A-Y in the end. Sergeant Livesay. He was a World War II combat veterans with 2 combat parachute jumps. And he kind of pushed me toward the airborne training too. Besides,
after you graduated from your basic training, the first 8 weeks, did you have a break before you went on to the advanced infantry training or no?
I think we did have a little break, a weekend or something or so. Yeah, and then we went to the advanced infantry, which was also 8 weeks. Basics 8 weeks, advanced infantry's 8 weeks. Airborne school was 4 weeks.
What did they teach you in advanced infantry? Is that when you knew you were going to be a machine gunner?
No, not really. They gave me that MOS, because I did very well with a machine gun. I couldn't shoot a rifle or a pistol worth a lick, so they figure give them a machine gun. Blind people can shoot machine guns. I was
So-
terrible with a rifle. I was lucky I qualified.
What machine gun did you use?
M60.
Can you tell me anything about the M60?
The M60 shot 600 rounds a minute. It was air cooled. Weighed 23 pounds.
And you get pretty good with that?
Very good with it.
After your advanced infantry, you went down to Georgia,
Fort Benning, Georgia.
and that was for 4 weeks?
4 weeks of training, parachute training, jump school.
What was that like?
That was very hard, very tough. I wanted to go home.
Physically or mentally?
Both. Physically and mentally.
What were some things that you had to do?
Well, in jump school, in them days, it was very, very hard. They used to have this week that they don't no longer have now. The first week there was called PCM week. It was physical conditioning and motivation. So they used to make you climb these cow ropes with knots on them. They used to make you run with telephone poles, sit-ups with telephone poles, knee benders with telephone poles, jump out of the towers. You had to qualify at least 70% or they make you do it over again. They used to grade you. And we had one little guy that was a real son of a bitch. His name was Corporal Stock. I can remember him to this day. He was the only corporal. Everybody was a sergeant. And he was the only corporal. And he was a son of a bitch. He was rough. It was tough. Jump school was very hard. Today they don't have that PCM week. The Pentagon made them drop that years ago after a couple officers had heart attacks. One was a lieutenant, one was a captain. So now that week at jump school is a week of reception mostly.
Were you qualified as a paratrooper after that
Yes,
training?
I was qualified as a paratrooper.
And where did you go from there? To repelling school?
Yes, I stayed at Fort Benning. Some guys went to the 82nd Airborne. Some went to the 101st Airborne. I stayed at Benning, very unhappy because that's not where I wanted. I stayed there because they were starting this new unit that was called the 11th Air Assault. It was the old 11th Airborne from the Second World War.
And you didn't want to be in that?
No, because I felt it was a ragtag outfit and never would think that they were going to be very famous in history, in military history. Because this 11th Air Assault was the new concept with helicopters, perfected at Benning for 2 years for Vietnam.
Did you realize it at that time?
No, I didn't.
So you had no clue.
I had no clue what they were doing this for.
What kinds of things did they teach you in repelling school?
Jump out of helicopters on ropes. First, you go through the tower week, learn on a tower. 1 week there, and then the other week was actually repelling out of the choppers for a week.
When you were in that school, did you know then that you would be going to Vietnam?
No, they told us very late in '65. It was rumors through the military grapevine, so to speak, that this outfit's gonna go to the Vietnam as a different name, and we didn't know what it was at first until late. Until actually we found out. This is the truth. We found out from President Johnson. We were in the day room watching the 6 o'clock news on black and white TV, and President Johnson came on the TV and said, "I'll never forget it as long as I live." He says, with his deep Texas accent, "Today," he said, "I'm ordering the 1st Air Cavalry Division from Fort Benning, Georgia, to Vietnam." And we all looked. We were stunned. We were stunned.
You should say that's us.
I said, "I guess that's us." Now we knew we're the 1st Air Cavalry Division, Air Cav. Instead of the 11th Air Assault, now we're the 11th Air Cav. The 11th Air Assault was the old 11th Airborne during the Second World War. They were a good unit.
So they changed you to the 1st Cav?
Yeah, from 11th Air Assault to the first. That's became the first air cavalry.
Now, between 65, when they were sending you to Vietnam, and 63, when you joined, where were you stationed? After your rappelling school, where did you
Stayed
go?
at Benning.
Oh, so you, and
I stayed there for 2 years.
what were your duties while you were there?
Machine gunner, infantry. You train every day and night in the air assault to perfect that kind. Had top priority in the United States Army. Didn't have to pull guard duty. Didn't have to do KP. Everything was fast-paced unit. Always in and out of choppers every day.
Did you stay with your same group of?
They split us all up. When the war came, because it had to do. I was very saddened by that because a lot of guys I spent 2 years with, I was no longer with them. I ran into them in Vietnam. A couple came along that I knew with me from Benning, but most of us, what I was told was they split us all up due to rank and file. We had to teach a lot of the new guys coming in, which were known as newbies. That's new babies. They're known as newbies, and we had to teach them air assault tactics. So they had to split us all up, get the veterans who were in the unit for 2 years, and show the new guys how air assault tactics worked, how to run in and out of choppers on a 45-degree angle, not to run into the blade, stuff like that, you know. How it felt in a chopper when they use auto rotation. You have to be 500 feet or higher. And if the chopper gets shot and they have to use auto rotation, they vice versa the blade and they come down. You hit a little hard, but at least you come down pretty safe, you know. That's what's called auto rotation, which is still used today.
So in 65, do you recall what months that you actually shipped out for Vietnam?
Yeah, August of 65. Advanced party. Main body came over September of 65 by boat.
How did you get to Vietnam?
By plane.
Did any of the other guys from your unit
Yes.
go with you?
There was.
Did you have a couple of
Yes,
you together?
they had quite a few people on the advanced party, and the boat that took the two boats. There was four of them. I can't remember all, but there was the Rosie, the Buckner. I'm trying to think of the other two ships. The Buckner and the Rosie took mostly all the infantry. Then one ship took all the choppers.
You had all your own choppers?
Oh yeah.
What did you use for helicopters?
Hueys.
Were they all Hueys?
All Huey. Huey-D, Huey-B. Not all Hueys. We had the Chinook. That's the C-48. Looks like a banana. We used that. They had the little Scout bubble chopper there. Two in a bubble. Little small birds. They used to call them small bird. You know, they're more advanced today. They have much. I only can speak of what I experienced personally, did or seen. You know, today it's much more advanced.
Now, where did you land when you arrived in Vietnam?
We landed in Saigon. Hi,
At
honey.
Tan Son Nhut?
Tan Son Nhut.
What was your first impression of Vietnam?
The first impression you get when you walk off the plane, which I also remember when I went back to visit Vietnam in '96, is the heat, the tremendous heat wave, and the smell of death.
Once you landed, where did you go?
They sent me out to An Khê, to the our main base camp was An Khê.
Now, when you, at this point, when you first flew in there and you went to An Khê, was your job a machine gunner or were you a scout yet?
Not yet. What happened when we first got to An Khê was, it was funny because it was, I have pictures of An Khê when we first got, it had a lot of tall grass, and General Kennard told us, he said, I want this whole field to look like a golf course. And we all got machetes and whatever we could get and cut it all down by hand.
So it hadn't even been built as a base yet.
Nope.
You guys.
I have
built it.
pictures. I'll show you pictures in my scrapbook. Yeah, we built them from scratch. Yeah, chased out all the rock apes that were in the mountains there, and it was one hell of an experience.
How long did you stay at On K?
Well, Vietnam tour was 1 year.
So that was your base the whole time you were in Vietnam?
That was the
your
main base. Yeah, on K, and I was supposed to go to the 1st of the 8th, I believe it was, the Jumping Mustangs. That was the airborne. They had 2 airborne battalions, 1st of the 8th and the 1st of the 12th. They were the 2 airborne battalions. So I was going to the 1st of the 8th, and what happened was, I guess the 1st of the 9th were short machine gunners, so they came around looking for machine gunners. Anybody like to volunteer to go to the 1st of the 9th? The Scouts. They were known as the Scouts, the Blues. They were known as the Blues. The infantry was the Blues, and they said they needed machine gunners, ground machine gunners, or door machine gunners in a chopper. I said, well, I'm a ground machine gunner. Everybody tried to talk me out. I said, no, don't go to that unit. They see too much action. If you want Purple Heart, go there. If you want to get killed, go there. I said, no, I want to, you're gung ho when you go there. Yeah, I want to see the action. I want to be in the action. Boy, was that a big mistake. That was a big mistake. And from there on, it was
you went with the 1st of the 9th?
9th.
Is that who you stayed with?
That's who I stayed with until I was wounded.
So, where did you go? Was your home base still on K?
Okay.
So it was just a different part of the base.
Right.
All right. So describe to me your beginning missions when you were in the 1st of the 9th.
Well, the Scouts did all the scouting for 1st Air Cav Division. They're first in and last out.
So describe in detail what you would do.
They do special operations. They would go out and piss everybody off out there, Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong. After we pissed them off, we'd leave and make the main body come in. Once the main body got there, we'd get out of there, or we stay in there sometime with the main body. And we were known to go in Cambodia, which we weren't supposed to be in, also North Vietnam, looking for POW camps. And we found a big North Vietnamese hospital. Also, we were in Laos, Thailand, as I said, Cambodia and North Vietnam. They were off limits during the war, but Scouts, Special Forces, Rangers, Navy SEALs were in those areas. They were just for special operations.
Do you recall a few of your missions at the beginning of your tour when you were relatively new in country?
Yes.
What were a couple of the missions that you went on?
Well, a couple of missions. They were air assault missions in the air. We had to go scout a place called the Ia Drang Valley. And
that was one of your first ones?
The Chupong Mountains and the Ia Drang Valley. Yeah, it was one of our first ones.
Which came first?
The Chupong Mountains.
Well, tell me about the Chubong Mountains first, and then we'll discuss the Ia Drang Valley.
The Chupong Mountains was a very heavily dense mountainous, very mountainous area, all triple canopy jungle. All triple going back in retrospect with the Central Highlands, where Chupong Massif was in the Ia Drang Valley, that was a very strategic area of the country for the reason why whoever controlled the Central Highlands controlled which way the flow of the war was going to go and in whose favor. Now, the 1st Cav had the Central Highlands, among other places, but 1st Cav not only had that area and controlled it, we owned it. We considered we owned it. And the Central Highlands, like I said, was a very strategic area during the war years, because who controlled that controlled which way the flow of the war was going to go, in whose favor. You were right in the middle of everything there.
So what was your mission in the Chupang Mountains?
My
Did your
my
unit,
my
your scouts go in first?
go in first.
So how
Go
many
in.
of you were
If the
Vietnam?
mission, if the well, the scouts, there wasn't all that many of us. There was maybe like 24. They break it down into 3-man teams and send you out, and then you start from an area. I'm trying to think of the correct name, the staging area, and from there you'd work out, and everybody synchronize their watches and have a rendezvous place where to meet. Some missions were uh, not to engage the enemy. Some missions were just to observe, take pictures. Other missions were go in, find out what they're doing, take a count of them if you can get a count, take pictures. If you have to engage in combat, which we did, we set up an ambush on Betty and Mary, and it literally pissed off the North Vietnamese, to say the least. Ambushed them, and they really had the red ass because they took it out on us in the Ai Drang Valley.
When you went into the Chupang Mountains, were you going in as observers or ambush?
Uh, One time observers, first time, second time ambush.
And is that what started the battle?
I'd say yes. I say yes. Well, what derived from that was, and this is, it should be on record, but this is a fact. The scouts went in, gave a report, and told all the brass, Westmoreland, all of them down in Saigon, that hundreds of North Vietnamese were coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And we watched them there for 3 days. By the hundreds, they were coming down the trail. They were literally riding bicycles with saddlebags on them, with ammunition and mortars sticking out of them. And they were over on one side of the Chupang Mountains is Cambodia, and the other side is South Vietnam. They were coming down to infiltrate in the Central Islands. That was going to be their big staging area where they were going to try to overrun the South. So the scouts gave a report that they were coming over by the hundreds. So it was the first report we gave. It was maybe 12 to 1,500. The brass in Saigon, we gave the report to battalion commander Colonel Stockton, at the time was the battalion commander, and they had spies. They were double agents, and most of the double agent spies that America used, United States, were they were actually turncoats from North Vietnam, and more or less a traitor, whatever you want to call them. And their information, they told us that their information didn't agree with ours. And it really pissed us off because here we are watching them, seeing them, got pictures of them, but yet the brass in Saigon didn't believe that they were coming over by the hundreds down the Ho Chi Minh Trail for a big build-up. So when they sent us back in November, and early November, we had ambushed them, and that was the 3rd or the 4th of November, and they left us up there at night, and our battalion commander said that we got to save them, we got to bring them in. If we don't rescue them, there's not going to be anybody there in the morning. So that became the first night air assault of the war. The 1st of the 8th came in to save the 1st of the 9th on the Chupang Mountains at, I believe it was around 12 midnight, 1 o'clock.
When they came. How many of you guys from the 1st to the 9th were there?
There was most of us were there
So
on that ambush.
24.
Yeah, I'd say yeah, and the ambush was successful, but our assistant division commander was a guy by the name of General Knowles. He was a brigadier general, and he told Colonel Stockton not to go out and get the men. He says, we'll get them in the morning. And Colonel Stockton, being pig-headed like he was really tough. Says, I'm not leaving my men up there. Knowles told me, I'm giving you a direct order. And they really disliked one another. Now, here's a light colonel who only got out a full bird colonel talking to a brigadier general. And the division commander, General Kennard, he was kind of like undecided. So Colonel Stockton got Captain Daniels, who was a captain from the 1st to the 8th. Colonel Stockton was a very qualified pilot himself, the battalion commander, and came out there himself and took us out of there that night. Because the morning, there wouldn't have been nobody there. If they didn't come that night, we wouldn't have been alive in the morning. They had us surrounded. There was no way we could have got out of there outside of being aerosoled out of there. Chopper lifted.
So they came in the dark of night and
Yeah.
got you all out, no casualties?
We had, I think, 2 casualties. That was it. Got us out of there. Then when we gave that report, they didn't believe us. And that report that we first gave came back to bite the American brass in the ass, because when General Moore had to go in there with his men, he walked in a hornet's nest. There was 4,000 of them up there, just waiting.
And the Americans had no idea.
Had no idea. The 1st and the 7th was Colonel Moore's unit.
Now, did LZ Betty and LZ Mary come before or after the Battle of Idrang?
It was early November, just before the bigger battle. That was the ambush.
So describe to me which was first, Betty or Mary?
Betty, I believe Betty was first.
So what was that like? This is November of 65?
Yeah, early in November. And we were also in there in October. We were in there in October observing. The scouts were in there 4 times, twice in October, twice in November. When Colonel Moore got in there and it came over how bad it was, the scouts wanted to go in there to try to help them get out of there and reinforce them. And they told us to stay put. They said, we'll let you know when you can go in. So the battle was 3 days, from the 14th to the 17th.
Now you're talking about Idrang?
Yeah, the Battle of LZ, X-ray.
Where were you? What had happened at LZ Betty and LZ Mary before that battle?
We encountered the North Vietnamese.
The 1st of the 9th.
That's right. We encountered them before Colonel Moore and Colonel Dade.
So, and again, you were telling the brass that there was...
We told our battalion commander told brass, it goes to the chain of command. Everything goes through the chain of command of the Army. And they said that their people, meaning their agents, their spies, said that can't be so. That they didn't have that many guys up there.
So
and we told them, we'll send some of them out there with us. We'll take them out there with us. Take off your white shirts and come on out with us. Or your brass. Take off all them scrambled egg hats you guys wear. You know, we call it scrambled eggs on the hat. And come on out with us. We'll take you out for a little trip. We had no takers. All talkers.
Where was your scout unit when Colonel Moore first moved into the Idrang Valley?
Back at base camp.
Did you know at that time that they were going out, or you didn't hear until after they were in there?
We knew they were going out, and we knew that they were getting their ass kicked. We got in battles from the 14th to the 17th. I think we came in there. The scout unit came in there the 17th, because my wound paper says the 17th, so it had to be the 17th.
Okay, why did they call you in? Were you aware of what was going on in the battle?
Not only, Eileen, not only were we aware of that battle, but the scouts knew that area better than anybody, per se. There was nobody who knew that area better than us.
So what was the call? What did they say they wanted you to do when they called your unit up?
Call us and told us to get in there. And I'll tell you, General Moore said to Lala, listen, the best way I can describe, my battalion commander was half nuts, and he made us all half nuts, Colonel Stockton. Great battalion commander, but very aggressive commander. Whereas General Moore was more of a, I don't want to say laid back, but very, very composed, relaxed battalion commander at all times. General Moore is not only a great man and a great soldier, General Moore is a great American. He is a great American. He saved a lot of lives, and I know to this day in his heart, he always felt that he should have died there. If he didn't call that broken arrow that day, I think it would have been a different story. I think the North Vietnamese would have won the battle. A broken arrow is on the radio, is infantry battalion is about to be overrun and wiped out, and every available aircraft from every branch of the service has to go over there and help that battalion. That's a broken arrow. That's a serious call.
Is that when you scouts were called in?
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Chopper.
So they choppered you in. You knew you were going into a battle.
Chopper.
So what was it like when you got in there and landed? Where did you land?
We landed. We were both there we were on X-ray and Albany there, in that area. The scouts. We were in all them areas there, the scouts, and they took a heavy toll of death toll. That battle was 3 days. It's on record. That's the most bloodiest and vicious battle of the entire Vietnam War. 305 casualties in 3 days.
What did you see and do once you hit the ground? Did you have to parachute?
I came out of the
land?
Pardon me?
Did the helicopters land, or did you have to parachute in?
No, we didn't parachute in. The choppers landed. They didn't even touch the ground. We jumped out maybe 12 feet off the ground. We jumped in. They didn't even land. They were scared maybe they land. If it's wet there or mucky, the chopper, the rudders get stuck down in the mud. You couldn't get out. We already had one shot down, one chopper shot down there, you know. And I was a machine gunner. A machine gun always came out first out of the chopper. The firepower comes out first. And I remember seeing a guy dead. And I stopped to help him. And jeez. He was bleeding from his throat, and the blood was gurgling. He was trying to tell me something about his mother. I couldn't. He wanted me to tell his mother something. Mother. He kept saying he was actually choking to death on his own blood. He was shot through the throat. I knew it wasn't good. This wasn't going to be good. You know, this wasn't going to be good. Excuse me.
So then where did you go from there?
And we went into the battle. Went into the battle with everyone else.
Did you know Colonel Moore at that time, personally?
I did not know Colonel. I knew him to see. I did not know him personally. You know.
So once you joined the battle, who was your commanding officer? Who were you taking orders from?
Colonel Stockton.
Was he there in person?
Yes, Colonel Stockton. Yeah.
Can you describe what the battlefield was like and whose group you joined and who was there at that time?
We had our own group. The battlefield. Jeez. There was nothing but bodies everywhere. Bodies everywhere. Everywhere. All you could smell was the sulfur from the firefights. You smell the napalm. It was the smell of death, bodies decomposing, and you decompose faster in the sun. You swell up, blow up to like a balloon, and then you decompose. There was bodies everywhere, dead bodies, all Americans, Then there was a lot of North Vietnamese mixed in with the Americans. It was just a bad sight, and I'll never forget that smell of that sulfur smell from the ammunition. Uh, a lot of fog, smoke, a lot of fog and smoke on the battlefield.
Did you set up your machine gun in one place and stay there, or did you move around?
I moved around. I actually was in a North Vietnamese bunker at one period of time. I was in a North Vietnamese bunker
So
with the
you
machine
took
gun.
over an empty North Vietnamese bunker. Is
Right.
that,
And
you
waited for
showed
them.
me a picture of you. Is that
That's
the
right.
picture where there's
That's right.
the trees are all shot up?
You're right.
So you set up your gun in that bunker and
That's
were
right.
just
Waiting for them to counterattack.
And did they?
They did.
And I guess you said there were 2 other guys in the bunker with you.
Right.
They were Americans, but you told them to get out.
Told them to get out. There's no sense 3 guys getting killed. Just, I'm the gunner. A gunner's lifespan in combat supposedly is 2 minutes.
So when they did counterattack, obviously you did survive it.
Well, yeah. The RPG went over my head. They missed the bunker.
Now, I know they fired an RPG at you. Is that when you got hit in the arm? I know you have a scar on your arm.
Yes, from the shrapnel, from ricochet shrapnel.
And that was at that time?
It was at that time.
I also know you got wounded in the back.
Right.
Was that at that same time, or was that a different battle?
Same time.
And was it the same RPG that got you both in the arm and the back, or 2 different incidents?
I'm not sure if it was. I'd say the same, but I'm not sure.
Did you even realize it when you got hit?
No. All I felt was something warm trickling down my arm. It was like somebody pouring hot coffee on me. The back one, I didn't even feel that much. With a piece of shrapnel went in. But I felt the shirt wet. My back was wet. So I thought it was just sweat, and wet from pouring water on my clothes with the canteen. And then my arm started burning. I looked down. Boy, it was a sight to be seen. Big hole in my arm. It was burnt. The shirt was burnt. And if anybody knows about RPGs, you can't touch that hot metal. It clings to you, sticks to you. You can't touch it with your hand. Take it off with your hand. You have to take it off with your K-bar, your knife, or your bayonet. You scrape it off.
How long, did you even have a sense of time? How long would you say it was from when you hit the ground and the battle was over?
That's hard to tell. That's a lot of years to go back. You're in a different frame of mind when you're in battle. You got a lot of adrenaline pumping. There's a lot of any infantry man will tell you. There's on a battle, in a firefight, or forget a firefight, a battle, an action. There's a lot of havoc and chaos going on. Everybody's hollering and squawking and guys screaming that are wounded. There's just total chaos and havoc on a battlefield, on a true battle.
And that's what it was like when you were there?
That's what it was like.
Did you continue firing, or did they medevac you out right away?
Well, I got medevaced after, when everything pretty much settled down. I'll give you an idea of what the battles sound like up there in X-ray and Albany. Let's say General Moore's unit. Everyone knows how loud a chainsaw is. I'd say get maybe 100 chainsaws or better, all going at the same time, and that'll give you a very good idea what it sounded like on that battlefield.
Were there any casualties in your unit?
2.
And they were
2
killed in action on the field?
2.
And I'm sure there were others that were wounded in action besides yourself.
Everybody, to the best of my knowledge, who was in the Drang Valley from the 14th to the 17th, or prior to that, the 3rd and 4th of early November, was either killed or wounded. I don't know of anyone who got out of the Drang Valley without a scratch. I don't know of anyone. I've never met anyone anyway who walked away without a scratch. Every guy I served with that was in that battle was either killed or wounded.
Did you have to stay overnight on the battlefield, or were you medevaced out that day?
I was medevaced out that day. I was medevaced out on the 17th. That's the day my wounded papers say, I was the 17th. Sometimes you can lose track of time in the infantry, you know. It's when you're an infantryman, it's you're always wet, cold, tired, and hungry when you're an infantryman. Half the time you don't even know what day it is, you know. You're always out in the bush. You're always, you know, you're a scout. You're really a tracker, and you're always out there.
When they medevaced you out, did they put all the casualties in one spot for the choppers to come in and get?
They do some ways they do it that way. Some they depends how the choppers come in.
How did they come in to get you guys from the Idrang?
They came in. They lined them all up. They carried them out. They didn't even have body bags. They were carrying them in ponchos.
Could the choppers land a whole bunch at a time, or did they have to just come in one, load them up, and then
they came periodically, in and out, in and out. Well, X-ray, which I wasn't on X-ray, but I know of the battle being out in that area, was only about the size of a football field, and the guys who were there, the guys I served with, telling me that when the choppers came in, it blew all the ponchos off the dead bodies. There was no litters to carry them in, stretchers or body bags. They carried them out on a lot of them carried them on their backs. By the time they got to the chopper, some of them were dead.
When they medevaced you, was it out of Albany?
Wasn't on either.
Oh.
It was on either one of those.
Where did they take you when they first took you right out?
Took me to, I think it was, believe, LZ English was the medevac landing thing.
Was there a hospital there?
There was a hospital there.
So they took you right to that hospital?
Yeah. The funny part, the battalion surgeon was, I'm trying to think of his name. I'll have to look in a book. I met him at one of the reunions because he was going to be the guest speaker. And I'm trying to think of what hospital he's the head of in Boston. And he came up to me and says, I know you. I was amazed after all. It was like, now we're going like 35 years later. He says, I worked on you. I said, what, the arm or the back? He says, the back. I just can't think of the battalion surgeon there, his name. I'd have to look in the book to get him up.
But he remembered you 35 years
I
later?
couldn't believe. He said, he knew my face. Maybe he remembered the nose. Everybody remembers the nose.
So they worked on both your arm and the back?
Yeah.
There? I know you had to have other work done. What did they do initially at that LZ English hospital?
Well, I guess they sedated me. There were so many people around you. When you get wounded, there's a lot of people around you. You're on a table and they're cutting off your clothes with a scissor. Your boot laces, everything. They're cutting you all up with scissors, taking all your clothes off.
Now, did you have, I know you lost a big hunk of your arm and you had to have skin grafts. Did they do that right there, or was that done later?
That was done later.
So they just stabilized you
You're
there?
right.
How long were you at that hospital?
I don't know, weeks. I was there weeks.
Oh, long time.
Yeah, a couple weeks. couple weeks.
Where did you go after you left?
I wanted to go back out in the field. They said, no, I think you're going to go home. So when March came, I went home. I didn't do even the whole tour in Vietnam, which was 1 year. I was there from August 65 to March of 66. So that's exactly, 7 months maybe?
So you went home, but you weren't discharged yet, right?
No,
So
no.
you went
They
home
moved,
right from the hospital?
no, yeah.
You didn't go back to your unit at all?
Went back, to the unit. Then they shipped, they flew me out to I think it was the Philippines. Then from the Philippines, they move you around a lot when you're wounded. They move you around a lot. And then
What did you do in the Philippines? Did you stay there for any length of time?
yeah, I was there for a little while.
In another hospital?
Yeah, it's from hospital to hospital. Then to LA, I think it was LA. Then from LA to Connecticut to the VA.
And where did they do the skin grafts? Was it out in LA or right here in Connecticut?
They did the skin graft. The first one was done in the Army. Then I had a second one done out in civilian life to more or less correct the graft. And actually what happened to was I guess some metal surface that they didn't take out. It had its surface, and they said it would. So they have an old saying, the surgeons told me, that they let a sleeping dog lie. That's a surgeon's term about if there's something in there that's not bothering you, just leave it alone. It will come out years later, which it did. It pops up.
Now, as you know now, the Battle of Idrang Valley has gone down in history.
Yes.
Did you realize at the time how historic that was? You just knew it was a big deal?
Never. I just thought I was just like everyone else. They're doing my job in the Army. When I went to the air assault, I was so upset, and I said, they put me in this ragtag outfit because we lived in an old World War II barracks, and just to have heat in there and hot water, you had to shovel coal into the furnace. We painted barracks. I said, I don't believe this. I joined the Army to paint barracks. Couldn't believe what I was doing for months until the unit started coming together, all new people coming in. I'm an original product of the 11th Air Assault and of General Canards. I'm an original product from 63 to 66.
So actually, you've seen a lot of history. I mean, that was very historic in itself.
Yeah.
So you've been part of many historic
Yeah,
events.
never thought I'd be a part of history or historic. Never in my dreams.
And actually, we know how.
And thought it was a lousy outfit. I mean, because I wasn't going to some big airborne outfit. I really wanted to go to 82nd or 101st. And they started this unit. And
Well, the Air Cav went on to be very famous
that's
in
right.
Vietnam.
They sure did. Have the most Congressional Medal of Honors and any other medal. Have, I believe 28 Congressional Medal of Honor winners, 18 posthumously.
And I know that earlier you had told me about the Stetsons. Can you tell me about that and the Air Cav?
The Stetsons and the Air Cav was patented by Colonel Stockton. He's the first guy to start wearing the black Stetson. And that's the 1st and the 9th of Scouts. And also, the 1st and the 9th of Scouts were the first ones, for the record, start putting the Ace of Spades on dead bodies. And then when everybody started following suit and copycatting, so we decided that we were going to start putting our patches on the dead bodies, the first Cav patch, to let the North Vietnamese or Viet Cong know exactly who killed you. And Colonel Stockton started that.
So the Ace of Spades, which later became commonplace with our soldiers.
That's right.
It was your unit, you guys, that started that?
Listen,
Did you just carry a pack of Ace of Spades with you everywhere?
All the guys carried Ace of Spades. And to the best of my knowledge, to this day, I'll swear that the 1st and the 9th started that. that tradition with in '65, putting the ace of spades on the dead bodies. And then when, as I said before, when other units were copying suit, we said, okay, we want to let them know that they were killed by the 1st Cavalry. So we start putting our patches. We all carried our first cap patches. We start putting the cap patch on the dead bodies of North Vietnamese and Viet Cong.
So for your 9 months or whatever you were in Vietnam, did you have anything that was at all like a regular or typical day? You know, most of the time, were you out in the bush? Were you ever?
A typical day was infantry. Any infantryman will tell you, you're out in the bush. The only time you came in, we had very few hot meals, and they were flown out to you. You didn't even go to base camp. Showers, we never showered. We all stunk. We were all dirty, cruddy. And sometime a pilot knew where it was a safe area. He'd bring you a couple at a time, guys, and to go and jump in this little river or this little pond. And that's how it was in the infantry. Infantry life is tough. You're always wet, cold, hungry, and tired.
How did you stay in touch with your family when you were over there?
I really didn't. My family didn't know I was going over there. I didn't tell them.
You didn't tell them you were going to Vietnam?
I didn't tell them nothing. I didn't tell my friends or family. What happened was they weren't getting any letters from me, and I had one of my aunts who worked in the telephone company who was a telephone supervisor, and she started making calls and couldn't get through, and then finally she contacted the Red Cross, and the Red Cross had told her that I was over there and that I had gotten wounded.
First, your family knew that you were even in Vietnam?
Yeah. I had another friend, he did the same thing. It was funny because his mother seen him loading up on the plane. Loaded up on the plane to go to Vietnam. She spotted him on the newsreel. On the newsreel. And it's funny, you know, Eileen, you can ask 10 Vietnam veterans about Vietnam. I'll say combat veterans, and you will get 10 different stories of Vietnam. I can assure you. Ask 50, you'll get 50 different stories. Everybody has got their own little story, and they only could tell you what they've seen and experienced. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Sure, some people can say from hearsay and everything, but most combat veterans, they'll tell you what they've seen through their eyes. And most of the time it's going to be pretty scary.
What was the food like? If you were in the bush, what were you eating?
Well, what we were eating was dog food. They didn't have all these ready-made meals like today. We ate C rations left over from the Second World War in Korea. And it said it right on the box. You had to cut the unit, the big unit, with cutting pliers because the wire was on it. They were a real bitch to get off, too. We all carried a P-38 to open the cans. And one of my favorites was hot dog and beans. I like that one. And meatballs and macaroni they had one, I think, was in sauce. That was on it. They had an A unit and a B unit, and the two differences between the A unit and the B unit was one unit had a pound cake in it, I remember. It had some kind of a cake. That was, we'll say the A unit, for argument's sake. And the B unit had the fruit. So it might have been one can with peaches in it or fruit cocktail. And what I did personally was I didn't smoke. So you used to get 3 cigarettes in your C rations. So I used to swap my cigarettes for fruit from guys who didn't like fruit. So they got my cigarettes and I got their fruit cocktail or their peaches. So I used to walk on with all fruit. And that's why I lived on, the fruit. Oh, and anything I liked out of the can, which was very few things, you know. Especially the tuna fish with hot sauce. Everybody tell you about the tuna fish with hot sauce. I remember throwing up on one of the helicopters after I ate that. It was flying around and dipping in. taking turns and flip flopping up there, and I remember barfing out the door. I had hot sauce on the tuna fish. Ugh, jeez.
When you would go back to the base, did they have 3 meals a day there? Did you have a regular dining hall?
They did, but in '65, the early years, we didn't have too much. We lived in tents, and when we had to take a shower, we got a bar of soap when it rained, and during the monsoon season, went out there bare ass, and we got a bar of soap, and that's how we showered. In the early years, there wasn't too much. I've had vets that went over there in later years and said, "You got to be kidding!" They said, "Ask anybody who was over there in the early years what they had for amenities, for showers. You had the rain. Ask them what they slept in. Slept on the wet ground, on air mattresses, under ponchos out in the bush."
And when you were in base camp, it was in tents on the ground. Did you have cots?
It was a little better at base camp. Yeah, it was a little better. Not much.
Were there ever any shortages? Did you have any shortages of food or supplies?
Always. Well, in the early years, always. You were lucky if you got a hot meal once a month.
What about
We ate
things like ammunition?
Always plenty of ammunition. Always plenty of choppers. Always plenty of battles or firefights, you know. And being in the scouts, you more or less looked for trouble. You were considered as a real pain in the ass, not only on the Vietnamese side, but on the Americans. Your own Americans used to call us a pain in the ass because, you know, we'd go in there and look for trouble and get everybody all stirred up and then get out of there. And the main body would come in and take care of business. So we were a real pain in the ass for everybody.
How did you handle the stress on the job? You were in a pretty stressful job.
Yeah, I was. It was tough. It was tough.
And how did you cope with that?
Well, when I was over there wasn't, you know, everybody has a stereotype as alcoholics and drug addicts. And that is such utter nonsense. It's the farthest thing from the truth because, and I'll tell you why. First of all, there wasn't any drugs or alcohol in '65, that much of it. Not saying it wasn't around somewhere, but any infantryman will tell you he would never go in a hole, a foxhole, or go on a combat mission with some bozo that was high on drugs or smoking pot or shooting dope or drinking alcohol. No way. And that's for the record. There's no one would go out with somebody like that. And if there was somebody like that, he wouldn't be going out in no chopper. If he was, he'd be going out the door. So that's just a big fallacy and a stigma that was put on us through the news, media, and Hollywood. Because maybe only 1% of the troops that went to Vietnam actually were into drugs and alcohol. I mean, everybody had a beer every now and then, yes. But to put that stigma on us to this day that we were all alcoholics and drug addicts is so far from the truth. It's total, utter nonsense. Because any infantryman will back me up on that.
What did you do for good luck? Did you do anything for good luck?
Yeah. You see my rosary beads. I always wore those rosary beads from Fort Benning to Vietnam. Had a pair of rosary beads that I still have to this day.
And you wore
them all the time with my dog tags.
So you wore them the entire time you were?
Wore them in battle.
Wow. And you still have them.
Yeah.
I also know that you still have your Zippo.
Yeah. Yeah, I have my Zippo still.
Did you buy that Zippo? I mean, it seems like a lot of guys had Zippos.
Yeah, everybody bought Zippos. Everybody had a Zippo. Everybody bought them, and guys that didn't smoke even had them, like myself.
I was just saying, you're a non-smoker.
Yeah, well, we had to use it to burn down villages and stuff. We'd use the Zippo to burn.
In your downtime,
You become a firebug when you're infantryman too, for the record.
in your downtime when you were back at the base, what did people do for entertainment?
They'd go to the EM club. There was little EM clubs where you drink the beer and stuff. It wasn't too much entertainment.
Did you get to see any USO shows?
I did. Bob Hope and Joey Heatherton.
Do you recall where that was?
It was, I believe it was on K. I think it was at the base camp. I believe it was at the base camp. With a lot of security. A lot of security.
Did you get any leaves while you were in?
Well, we had R&R, rest and recuperation. You were, you can go to Bangkok, Thailand. A lot of guys went there. Some guys went Hawaii, but I had a lot of rest being wounded, so I had a lot of R&R.
So you went to Bangkok?
I've been in Bangkok, Thailand, yeah. Even when I went back to Vietnam in '96, I visited Bangkok, Thailand. That's Sin City of the world, for the record.
Bangkok?
Bangkok is Sin City of the world. Everybody goes there to become transvestites and whatever, you know?
What did you think of the officers?
That I served with?
Yes.
Very good officers. Very good. Very good officers. And they were much older than we were. I was 20. Some lieutenants were 22, 23, 24. Yeah, that's all. 23, 24. Yeah, you graduate out of West Point or ROTC. So, yeah, they had to be about 23, 24 years old. Young lieutenants. Very, very, very good officers we had. First Cav, as far as I'm concerned, without being biased, was the best division in the Army.
Well, they do have a very good reputation. What's your opinion of your fellow servicemen?
My opinion of my fellow service, awesome. One word, awesome. To this day.
Now, did you stay in touch with anybody from your unit?
I stay in touch with a lot of guys from my unit. We have the Idrang Valley reunion every year.
When did they start doing that?
It had to be, I'm trying to think, 95, 205 would be 10, somewhere in the 90s, because I went to 12 of them. The 30-year reunion was the first one I went to. That had been 95. That's the first one I went to, myself, personally.
Yeah.
The 30-year reunion, I went. And met, first time I seen Colonel Stockton again. He was the guest speaker.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, that's funny. He's a character. He's a character. And he made it a thumb of rule that he said, I don't want to see no man in this battalion wearing underwear. He said, you can wear socks and make sure you have 3 pair in your pack, but no underwear, he always say. And somebody asked him why. He said, because you'll get jungle rot in your crotch. That's the kind of battalion commander he was, you know. And everybody, to this day, including myself, I'd say don't wear underwear, just socks. It's a rule of thumb with the first and the ninth. Yeah.
Now, I know you told me earlier, another thing that you learned, that you had a lot of little tricks to keep you alive there, and you showed me
A barbed
wire necklace. Can you describe that?
The barbed wire collar was to stay awake. To stay awake, literally stay awake. Because when you're in battle, if you're there for, say, 2-3 nights, you want to sleep. And if you're in battle, it's 100% alert. You either have 100% alert if you're in infantry, or 50% alert, where one man sleeps for a couple hours and the other man sleeps for a couple hours. It's an on and off thing if you're on 50% alert. If you're on 100% alert, such as the I drank, nobody sleeps. Everybody's on alert at all times, 24/7. It's pretty hard to keep your eyes open. So my little trick was, I had this barbed wire collar that I used to wear, which I still have one. And if I started to doze off, the collar would poke me. And would poke me good. And it kept me awake. And from what I understand today, it's something that they teach in guerrilla warfare school at, from what I heard, was at Benning and at Bragg for Special Forces. But I'm going down on record as being the one who started that. I can honestly say that was my patent, as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds like it was pretty effective too.
Yeah, I have a couple of scars under my neck from it, you know.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yes.
I know you were. Would you recall what they were?
Yeah, I have the Vietnamese Gallantry Cross. This is the second highest Vietnamese medal. I have Purple Heart Campaign Medal, National Defense Medal. Geez.
The Purple Heart was from the Ia Drang Valley.
Yes.
Did your unit receive any unit citations?
Yes, Presidential Unit Citation. The only ones who received one from President Johnson.
How did you feel about leaving your scout unit to come home to the United States?
I had a very hard time with that and adjusting. And literally, I think I missed my call staying in the Army, because I came very, very close to staying in, and my mother and father, especially my mother, more so pleaded with me. She used to cry for me not to go back in. I wanted to go back in. I really didn't want to get out, but I said I'll get out and see what it's like in civilian life. And I don't function to this day too well in civilian life due to PTSD and other things. I don't function well as a civilian. But you put me on a battlefield, I function very well on a battlefield. And I missed that adrenaline rush. I missed combat. And I missed the choppers.
Do you recall your last days in service? Where were you before they discharged you? Did they discharge you right here from the VA hospital in Connecticut?
Yeah, I was discharged from the hospital, yes.
What did you do in those days and weeks immediately after your discharge?
I came home to a town, my hometown in Ansonia, with a neighborhood that looked like was just bombed in Vietnam. I had no neighborhood due to redevelopment. My whole neighborhood was down, flattened. Was nothing there. I had to call one of my uncles and aunts to find out part of town my mother and father were at, where they lived at now. Because I came home by train. I got off in the Haven and took a cab home and had no home. Didn't know where I had to go. So that was a big shock.
So you had a lot of issues to
issues.
Readjust to civilian life.
First 2 years were rough on me, real bad.
Now you said you had PTSD. Of course, it wasn't talked about a lot then.
Wasn't even heard of. That never came out until the 80s. PTSD was never. Years ago, they called it battle fatigue, and they had all these crazy other names, you know, for you know.
How did that affect you when you were first home?
A lot. Didn't know you had it though. You don't know you had it. You don't know you had it. You just figure you're acting like this because what you went through. You know, the irritability, nightmares, You're angry all the time. You're very aggressive. You know, and the PTSD, you struggle with it. The best advice I got for that was from my platoon sergeant who lost an arm and a leg. He looked me dead in the eye. I stay in touch with him. I go to his house and visit him in Georgia. He says, Joey, he said, I'm going to tell you how you handle PTSD. And this is a guy with no arm and no leg. He said, you make peace with those ghosts. He said, they don't leave. They don't go nowhere. They never leave. He said, you just make peace with them. I looked at him like he was crazy. He said, yeah. He said, you shake hands with all of them. You be their friend. Make peace with them. That's the best way. And he said, as far as the war, don't worry about the war. He says, that was just another chapter in your life. He said, just turn the page and go to the next chapter. He said, Vietnam prepared you for anything else that's going to come your way in the future. He said, don't worry about nothing. You'll make it. He says, just turn the page, go to the next chapter. He gave me the best advice that anybody ever gave me, including my own mother and father, aunts, uncles, friends, especially shrinks. I've seen them all, civilian, VA, I've seen them all. And I think some of them need their self shrinks. And from what I'm told, they have the highest suicide rate in the medical profession, the psychiatrists.
Did you get a job?
I got a job in the shop where my mother's side of the family all worked in Scoville's in Waterbury, Connecticut. They hired me right away on the spot.
What was your homecoming like? It sounded like I know at the time a lot of employers would not hire Vietnam vets.
Right. Well, fortunately, I had a lot of family members that worked in this particular factory, Scoville Manufacturer, who made everything for the military. All brass was made at the time in Waterbury, Connecticut. They're the brass city of the world. Any brass button, even on the military uniforms, will say Scoville Manufacturing on it. They're the brass city of the world. I got a job there because my mother's brothers and sisters worked there. They gave me a job. And I worked there 10 years.
And then what did you do?
I got laid off. I worked for Pat and Turn. Pat the street, turn the corner for 2 years.
Where was your next job?
Let's see, I'm trying to think. It's so long ago. Went to school for be a dental technician.
Did you go back to school on the GI Bill?
Yeah. And couldn't make no money being a dental technician. They were starting you out like about $5 or $6 an hour. So that was like 4 years, I'm saying, of training from the UConn Medical Center in Farmington. Wasted. And I got into the extermination business. A friend of mine taught me the extermination business, and that's what I retired from after 30 years.
Joey, what was your homecoming like when you did return from service?
It was terrible, terrible. To see literally protesters with signs at New York, at Kennedy, years ago, it was called Idlewild Airport. And they made it Kennedy now, Kennedy Airport. And they had all these horses up, wooden horses, that is, barriers. And all the hippies, and that's what they were, hippies, and protesters with signs that said baby killers on them, get out of the war. The most that hurt me the most was that they threw raw eggs at us. That hurt me to this day.
That was in New York?
In New York. When we were in LA, the airlines came around, the stewardesses asked us if we take off our uniforms to ride in civilian clothes, get out in civilian clothes when we got off the plane. And we all refused it. We're going to get out of our uniform and put civilian clothes on, because they didn't want to know who the GIs were, the soldiers were. At LA, this was airport, LAX, and Kennedy is where they threw the eggs at us, spitting and everything.
Have you seen a change over the years in the American people and acceptance of Vietnam vets?
I have. I was very touched by that. It's funny you asked me that question, because I was very touched by two people at the walls. One of my friends that was a lieutenant, Lieutenant Tramontano. He was a recon platoon leader, stayed in the service, got out a full-bird colonel. And some lady tugged on my arm and said to me, I'm very sorry for being a war protester. I looked at her, gave her a dirty look. I said, you the lady that threw the egg at me? She said, I never threw any eggs. She says, but I was a war pro, and I'm very, very sorry. I never knew what you people went through. You guys went through. I had two people, and a guy, come up and shook my hand and told me the same thing, that he was a war protester and that he was very sorry. I was very filled up. I really got emotional at that. It really touched the nerve.
How did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Myself, I like the military, and like I said before, I miss my call. I was born to be in the military. I really believe that was my calling, to stay in the military. But now I have my daughter in the military. She's going to stay in the military, so she's going to take up where I left off, I guess. You know.
She is going to stay in.
Yes.
Now, I know your daughter just graduated from West Point Academy.
No, she was appointed to West Point. West Point sent her to Valley Forge Military College, which is their prep school. And she was there for 2 years. So when she went back to West Point, they told her they're not going to count her prep years. They don't count your prep years, West Point. They're the only military college that doesn't do that. So she had to make a big choice. Now, does she keep the 2 years and go on as a junior to another military school, which she did, and refused West Point's offer? She was on the consideration list still to be considered to go to West Point, being of my military record. Parents who are military have preferential treatment at West Point. I want that to be known, yeah. But West Point gets 10,000 applications a year.
So
and
what did
they
you
only
draw
could
her
pick
out
up.
to do?
So she had 2 years in, so she applied at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, Texas A&M, Norwich Military Academy, which I thought she should have went to first, which is up in Vermont. So she goes to North State, Georgia Military College and University. It's the Military College of Georgia, is where she ended up. She didn't want to go to the Citadel. They don't like women there, and I want to be on record with that. You people don't like women at the Citadel. That's why, I don't know. So, to get my goat out, I influenced my daughter about the military to show that girls can do what guys can do, and that more girls should go into the military. Because my daughter has already got 2 skydives, and she's going airborne in the Army. And she's the first woman at Valley Forge Military College become a battalion leader.
She's following in her dad's footsteps.
Yeah, boot steps instead of footsteps. Boot steps. She's a second class to graduate from there. They never accepted women. They're the last, and I want to be on record about that. That's really something that bothered me. That Valley Forge, very historic area since George Washington time. They're the last military college in the country to accept women. My daughter's the second class to graduate from that that school. And the school that she got her degree in, North State, Georgia, college near, was the first school, military college, to accept women. So she starts off at the last college for women, who accept women, and ends up in the first college to accept women.
Joey, did you join any veterans organizations?
Do I belong to any?
Yes.
I belong to the VFW. I belong to American Legion. I belong to the 1st Cav Division. I belong to the 1st and the 9th of the 1st Cav Division, which is the Scouts. I belong to VVA, Vietnam Veterans of America. And I belong to the IDRANG alumni. And also the 11th Airborne Division, 11th Air Assault Division.
Now, I know you said that every year you attend 2 reunions, one on Veterans Day, and which one is that?
I used to go twice a year to the wall, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And I don't go to the Memorial Day one anymore. That's Rolling Thunder. I still go to the Veterans Day, which is November, and meet with all the guys I served with.
Is that the IDRANG reunion?
That's the IDRANG reunion. It is.
Are you going to go this year?
I'm going this year with my son.
Joey, how would you say that your service affected your life?
In what kind of way? Positive or negative?
Either.
It's had an effect on me both ways, positive and negative. Negative because of the PTSD. You know, you find out, you just can't get in trouble and get arrested for fighting and everything, and in a negative sense, you just can't go on like that. And a positive, it made me a better person, the military. I thank the military for my character, my honor, my integrity, my sincerity, all the good characteristics that I have, I say come from the military, which is why I would like all my children to go into the military. One didn't go, my first one, my second one's in the military, and I'm going to try and talk my other 2 into the military, if that's possible. I had boy, girl. So my girls should have been boys, and my boys should have been girls.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Joey, think back now to what we've talked about in the interview. What have I missed? Have you got any other memories or experiences that you can recall that you'd like to tell me about?
In the war years?
Yes.
Of the war?
Yes.
Well, they're not good memories. They're sad. I'm very saddened how that war took so many friends of mine, and we came home to be spitted on and have eggs thrown on us, and had most of all had nothing to show for but 58,200 plus men that were killed in there. Lost the war at the table. At the Paris peace talks is where the Vietnam War was lost. Not on the battlefield. We never lost one major battle, and that's a fact.
Now, I know you told me earlier you actually returned to Vietnam.
1996.
And what was that like, and why did you go?
I asked the first group of guys who went back with General Moore how it was, and then I was considering to go back on one of the trips. I wanted to know what it was like. So after they came back, told me what it was like, I said, I think I'm going to try this. It was a very, very emotional experience. A lot of ups, downs. You cry, you're sad, you're happy. You're ecstatic at times, People were very, very receptive to us Americans, which would shock me the most. How they didn't harbor hatred as much toward us as we do toward them. There's more hatred harbored from America toward Vietnam than Vietnam toward America.
When you went back, did you go to your old base at An Thai?
I went back to my old base in An Thai.
What's there now?
Nothing but the mountain is still there. They took down all our insignias. Actually, one of the guys, is it raining out, Ev? No, okay. Because my flags are out there. Let me know if it rains. They don't harbor hatred as much over there toward us as we do here toward them, and that was kind of shocking to me. You know, let me tell you, Eileen, we lost 58,200 plus. I believe that's a pretty close count, but people don't realize, America, that they lost 4 million people between military and civilians. They lost about 4 million people. Nobody gives a rat's ass about what they lost. Nobody even thinks of that. And that might not even be an accurate count. That's just a summary account, I guess. They dispute it. Vietnam disputes that they lost that many, but they did. They lost about 4 million people from that war.
Did you return to the Ai Valley?
I got as close to the valley as the 5th Special Forces camp. They wouldn't let me go any further because it's called the red area. It's off-limits area. However, General Moore and them got in, and Joe Galloway got in onto X-ray, slept there one night over with the North Vietnamese who they fought against. They got there. I got as far as the 5th Special Forces camp, which is about 10 to 12-minute ride by chopper to the Ai Valley. So I was at the 5th Special Forces camp. Was my end of my journey for there.
Did you go, when you went back on that trip, was it with other vets?
Yes. There was about 18 of us. A couple of guys took their wives, and they were troopers. They hung in there. And we all got sick and diarrhea, dysentery. When we first came all down with it, it's funny because we didn't know if the Vietnamese, first thought that they poisoned us, that they put something in our food. But it's just that we just caught a bug. It was just a bad bug, and it went through the whole bus. The bus was air conditioned, and when everybody starts coughing and sneezing, and we all just had diarrhea, all of us. I mean, it was part of the trip, I guess, so to speak.
On that trip, after that trip, did you feel that you had any kind of closure in your own mind?
I did. I felt I had that monkey off my back. I really felt I had a lot of closure. I really, truly did, but it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I know a lot of vets have gone back and a lot haven't. They won't. They have no desire, but a lot have. And most of the guys that survived the Ai Valley have gone back.
Do you think that helped with your PTSD?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
How yes and how no? Did it stir up old?
Yes, it stirred up old things. No. I know the war's over. It's done. It's closure. I could close the door.
Yep.
I could close the door. Finally.
Would you go back again?
No. I won't go back again. Unless my family wanted to go.
Well, Joey, is there anything that you'd like to add to this interview that we haven't covered?
In regards to our book, that was a bestseller, We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Great book that General Moore and Joe Galloway wrote, and then a movie being made from the book, I'd like to say that the movie is very accurate. I say 90% accurate. The only thing missing from that movie, I can honestly say, and I went to the movie with the press, and I do have videos of that day. The only thing missing from that movie is the, the smell of death. That's the only thing missing from that movie, is the smell of death. Everything else is accurate.
Wow. And that's from somebody who was there. Well, Joey, I'd like to thank you for your service to our country. And
Thank you.
you for this interview.
I appreciate that.